Welcome to the Deer and Squirrel video. These are two animals you probably see a lot of in Chester County. Get ready to learn more about them. Okay, Ranger Mullen, don't keep us waiting.
So the white-tailed deer is our state mammal, and they are everywhere in the Commonwealth. This pelt is a winter pelt. Deer have a winter coat and a summer coat, and their summer coat has a reddish cast to it, very noticeable, and typically mid to late August is when they start to molt from their summer coat into their winter coat, and you might come across a deer that's got red patches amongst a fur or a pelt that looks like this, and that's because they haven't fully molted into their winter coat yet. So this is the winter coat. Interestingly enough, the hair on a deer's hide is hollow, which makes it very, very, very good at insulating the animal through the winter months. It is an herbivore, and it is a browsing animal, which means that its main food is twigs and the ends of branches with terminal buds. That's their main winter food. And they need about 5 pounds of that a day to survive the winter. They are typically fawning or giving birth to their fawns in end of May through June is when most of our fawns drop. And the males grow antlers out of the tops of their head. This is bone. Frequently I'll ask school students what this is made of, and the first guess is wood. This is bone. And every year when deer grow antlers, in the latter part of the year, usually late December, early January, the antlers fall off. And in about 5 months, they grow a new pair. And the antlers really are, they can be used to defend themselves or defend each other, but they're really used for breeding rights. Bucks with big antlers get into shoving matches with other bucks with big antlers, and the guy who wins the shoving match gets to breed more does. And it's really a status symbol more than anything. The same can be said for the Rocky Mountain elk, which we have in Pennsylvania, except their antlers are an order much larger than what we have here. So there's usually two. There's a matching antler over here, and on the deer's head, they sweep forward. On the elk, it sweeps back over the shoulder. The things that make antler growth good, there's a couple of factors. One is the age of the deer. Studies and a lot of scientific research has shown that the age for maximum antler development is from the age of 3 to 7. Diet is huge. The deer must have a good diet to support good antler growth. And genetics is also a factor, but of the three, that's the least important. So if Daddy was a big buck and Junior is eating a good diet and gets to the age of maximum rack development, he might be a big buck. So those are the three factors typically that are considered when judging the age of a deer or determining what goes into antler development, are those three factors. White-tails can be identified, I think, just simply by the appearance of the coat. First of all, the size. It's a large mammal in Pennsylvania. It has white flanks and belly, and it's called a white-tailed deer because the underside of the tail is white. When the deer is being stressed or it is in alarm, it'll raise this tail, and you'll see a white flag waving and going through the woods as they run away from whatever has them worked up, and that white flash alerts other deer that they need to be cautious. There could be trouble nearby. They are a hoofed animal with a split hoof, very distinct footprint. I don't think anyone would mistake a deer footprint for anything else. And their scat is also very recognizable, small pellets, frequently in a pile, sometimes scattered, typically darker brown than this. To age these animals, what is frequently used are the teeth. The teeth wear over time, and with a lot of practice, you can look at the wear of the teeth and determine how old this animal is. And it's usually done, 6 months, year and a half, 2.5, 3.5. That's typically the way the age is figured out. And it takes a lot of experience at looking at teeth wear to determine the age. The deer biologists of the Game Commission are really good at it. It takes practice to get that down really well. Getting down to the end of it here with our gray squirrel. This is not a real good sample of the tail of a gray squirrel, but you get the idea. It's very typically full and fluffy looking. The gray squirrel is gray all over with a white belly. Spends lots and lots of time in our trees, but is also found on the ground. Eats all kinds of acorns and beech nuts and walnuts and you name it. Caches them in the ground for use throughout the winter. And he is not the only squirrel that we have in Pennsylvania. We also have red squirrels, which are smaller, and they're that rusty red color, sort of like what we saw with the coyote behind the ears and the red fox. We also have fox squirrels, which is sort of looks like a gray squirrel bulked up and that rusty reddish color tinting the gray. Gray squirrels can also have different appearances. Gray squirrels can have a very dark or almost black fur, and most people refer to them as black squirrels, but they're not a separate species. They're just a black colored gray squirrel. We call that a melanistic squirrel. Melanistic means black, or that it's a very dark fur. You can also have albino squirrels. An albino squirrel is all white. Even the nose and the eyes there's no pigment there at all, and so the nose and the eyes would appear pink. And you can have albinism in almost any of the mammal species that we have. You see it in white-tailed deer, and you see it in other species as well, but for some reason in some areas you find it pretty common in squirrels. And in some areas you find a high incidence of melanistic gray squirrels, and I'm not quite sure the reason for that. This fellow serves as prey for an awful lot of species. All of the predators that we showed you today would take squirrel, as well as our hawks and our owls. Big predators for this fellow.